Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Mrs. James. I am the lead counselor here at Plano Senior High School, and I want to welcome you to our financial aid and scholarship presentation tonight. And we are joined by our presenter. He is from Texas Tech. He is the Associate Director of Outreach and Engagement. And before I introduce him and let him take over, I do want to say that even though our presenter tonight is from Texas Tech University, and he will be giving us some specifics about Texas Tech financial aid, a lot of the information that he is presenting is applicable to lots of our Texas institutions. And so whether or not Texas Tech is on your list, although I think it should be, but whether or not it is, the information that he's going to be providing is applicable to many institutions, especially those here in Texas. So with us is Brooks Gustafson, and he
Yep.
is going to be presenting. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, you nailed the last name there. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Well, yes, absolutely. I will kind of tell you when I'm going to be wearing my Texas Tech hat and when I'm wearing my general financial aid hat, and so I'll talk to you guys through some of that. A lot of these things are going to look very similar over all the public schools in Texas. The private schools are going to look a little different. The TCUs, the Baylors, the SMUs, some of those schools are their aid works completely different than the way ours does, and so I can't speak to any of that, but. The other Texas public schools are going to look very similar to the way we do it. Obviously, some differences, but going to be very similar across all the schools. So, all right. So, financial aid all kind of starts with cost of attendance. The school that you're thinking about going to, every school in the country has the same. They have cost of attendance is made up of the same six elements. So, tuition and fees, so the classes you're signed up for. Housing and meals your first year on campus. That's going to be your dorm room and your meal plan. And then there's three things that you kind of need to plan for during your time as a student, but nothing that you're ever going to pay directly to the school. So books, transportation cost, and then miscellaneous expenses. The way schools calculate these is very regulated by the Department of Ed. Everyone has to use the same calculations. Obviously, different places are going to cost different to live and things like that, but everyone has to calculate it the same way. And so with all of these things, very specific to your schools, but everyone has the same thing. This is a really good way to kind of compare sticker prices. Like if you were shopping for cars, you would compare sticker price. Obviously, different things. You add, the nicer radio to your car, it's going to be a little more expensive, or the heated seats or those kind of things make things a little more expensive or not. And that's very similar to the way cost of attendance works. So good way to kind of shop schools back and forth, but know that there's context to all these numbers that these schools publish within cost of attendance. I've got some Texas Tech examples here. So this is Texas Tech's cost of attendance. Cost of attendance is not your bill at these schools. So these are not going to be exact numbers to what you are paying when you get that first bill. These are averages. Again, depending on what you sign up for. If you sign up for the biggest, nicest, fanciest dorm, it's going to be more expensive than the housing average that we have here. Same with the meal plans, those kind of things. So this is specific to our Texas residents at here in Tech or in Texas. The out-of-state kids and our bordering state students are going to be a little different. All of you here are Texas residents, so I didn't include that in the slideshow here. But for us, tuition and fees, that's an average of 15 hours in the fall, 15 hours in the spring. With all of these numbers, cut them in half of it in the fall semester, half in the spring. Housing, that's our average, kind of a middle of the road, real middle of the road dorm on campus or living off campus. That's an average cost. If you're in our traditional dorm room, it's going to be much less expensive than this. If you sign up for the biggest, fanciest one, going to be more expensive than that, $7,075. The meal plan, we use our biggest meal plan amount. That's if you're going to eat 3 meals a day, 7 days a week in the dining hall. Most students don't do that. If you're a normal college kid, you're going to wake up 10 minutes before class starts and eat a Pop-Tart as you run across campus. You might not need the biggest meal plan. So with all the schools, you're going to be able to shop your dorm rooms around, kind of look at the ones that you want versus what you don't. And then with the meal plans, there's usually 2 or 3 different options at all these schools. That's our biggest one that we have on campus. Books and supplies, that is the things that you need to be successful in the classes you're taking. So if you're an architect or an engineer, you may have some specific computer software, something that you need to do your homework. If you're an art student, there's supplies that you need. If you're most of our degrees on campus are just going to be textbooks and things like that. And a lot of professors don't require them. They may say, hey, if you want to help in class, this may be something that you want to do. My granddad taught on campus here at Texas Tech for like 40 years. He said he was smarter than the guy that wrote the textbook for his class, so he never required it. So some professors are pretty proud like that, but go to your first day of class, ask them if you need those textbooks before you go buy them. Every class is going to have those syllabus listed, a book listed on the syllabus. So make sure that is something that you'd look at. Transportation, this cost for us is your cost to get from home to Lubbock, around Lubbock while you're here, and then back home. So we have 4 round trips built into this transportation cost. So that's to get here in August, and then home and back for Thanksgiving, home and back for Christmas break, home and back for spring break, and then home in May at the end of the semester. So if you're flying your private jet back and forth, probably going to be more expensive than this $2,700 number. I grew up right here in Lubbock. I went to Texas Tech, so it did not cost me $2,700 to get back and forth. At Texas Tech, like 80% of our students are from 600 miles or further away. So those are things that you get to kind of weigh how you want to do that. If that can just be gas for the car, oil changes, those kind of things, or that can be 4 or 5 round trip plane tickets if that's something you want to do. But that transportation cost is just kind of something that you've got to work out on your own. That's an average that we use for our students here, but going to be very specific to your situation. And then the transportation costs are going to look differently at each school, right? And the miscellaneous is just kind of everything else. So your favorite bands in town, you want to buy a concert ticket, or the shampoo and the toothpaste you need to get throughout the year. So cost of attendance, similar elements at all the schools, but obviously the costs are going to be different here. So these are direct costs, things that you will pay to the university. So your first year on campus, your classes, your dorm room, your meal plan are things that you're going to pay. So if you want to look at those costs at all the schools, I mean, this is the Texas Tech example that I'm familiar with, but those are the things that you're going to pay directly to Texas Tech. Add all those numbers together, cut them in half for the fall semester, half for the spring semester. That's a pretty good place to start for what to expect, what your bill is going to look like. Again, however many classes you sign up for, if you sign up for more than 15 hours or less than 15 hours, and that tuition number will change some. Depending on the dorm room, that'll change. The meal plan, that'll change. But that's a good place to start when projecting what your cost is going to look like, how to compare it compared to your financial aid offer and those kind of things. And then on this next slide is our indirect costs. So things that you need to plan for, things that you're going to spend money on, but things that you're not going to spend money on directly to Texas Tech. So those books and supplies, there's a lot of different ways to shop those around. Truth be told, if you're spending $600 a semester on books and supplies, you are not trying very hard to find a deal. There's so many different ways to buy those books. When I was a student here, there was one bookstore on campus and you were paying whatever they were charging. And so I hope you're not doing that nowadays. Find those, take hand-me-downs from your classmates, people you know a couple years older than you that are here at your school, wherever you end up. And then transportation miscellaneous, right? You need gas for the car, those kind of things to make your life easier to get from home to school and back, right? So different types of aid. Some of these can live in different places at your school. I can speak to the examples here at Texas Tech. So types of aid: grant funding, need-based funding through the Department of Ed, through the state of Texas, through the university that you're thinking about going to. You fill out the application. The FAFSA is how you apply to those grant funds. Scholarships, both internal to your school and external outside sources, things like your parents' employers or your high school teams or clubs or groups and those things that you're a part of, all have scholarships. Make sure you're asking about those. We'll talk about some of those examples here in a few slides. Work study. So working a job while you're a student on campus is a great way to get some things for your resume and those kind of things, but also put some money in your pocket during your time as a student. And then student loans. Hopefully we can pay the bill with those first 3. Don't need to mess with this last one, but student loans is also part of the financial aid umbrella. Financial aid and scholarships is kind of a big umbrella for kind of anything that you can get to pay for your student bill during your time as a student. At Texas Tech, our military benefits are handled through our Military and Veterans Program Office, MVP. At some schools, those military benefits are handled by the Financial Aid Office. The benefits don't change; they're just kind of processed in different places. So things like Hazelwood through the state of Texas or federal VA benefits like Chapter 31, 33, 35, post 9/11. There's some of those. I'm glad that our Military and Veterans Program office exists at Texas Tech because they can answer those questions. The little bit that I've been around it, it's something that I'm glad that they deal with. And then waivers, there's a million different waivers. Blind and deaf students exemptions. If you are valedictorian at your school, you get a waiver through the state of Texas that pays your first year tuition. So if the valedictorian of your high school is on here, then make sure you're exploring that through your the Texas public high schools or public schools, universities in Texas. Make sure we know that so we can make sure that tuition is paid for. There is a lot of different things that our student business service will handle for. So the FAFSA is open now. It opened on October 1st. It should open on October 1st every single school year during your time. That's how you're going to apply to federal, state, and university aid. FAFSA stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid. Sometimes people think that you got to pay for these applications and things like that. It is absolutely free each year that you do that. And in the last couple of years, they made it a state requirement to get your high school diploma. Fill out the FAFSA or sign a thing saying you're not going to. I'm sure Ms. James can tell you about those. Good. Okay. So FAFSA open on October 1st for 26-27. So seniors in here, this is something that's open for you now. This is how you apply to grant funding. I know that there was a chat in here about when it's due. Different schools, different states have different requirements. For our Texas public schools, universities, the state priority deadline is January 15th. So every public school gets so much money throughout the year to spend. As long as we have that FAFSA by January 15th, then if you're eligible for it, you're going to get that money. If we get that after January 15th and we've spent all that money, even though you're eligible for it, you kind of miss out on it. So make sure you submit that FAFSA to all your schools. So we can have that information. We compare it with your admissions application once you get accepted to those schools. We pair that and then we can offer you financial aid. The FAFSA uses 2-year prior tax information for both the student and the parent. So students, a lot of you don't have any income from 2 years ago because you were a sophomore in high school, right? Or income that you reported to the IRS. You will still tell them, hey, I didn't make any money. You don't just skip those sections or anything like that. The best thing that's happened to the FAFSA in a long time is this direct data exchange. So if you did file taxes, parents, this is probably more for you than it is students. Students too, you'll need to say yes to this. But when you get to this part of the FAFSA, the direct data exchange will say, hey, do you want to do this? It's pulling the information straight from the IRS, those taxes that you filed 2 years ago. It's taking that information straight from the IRS, putting it into your FAFSA, and you get to skip like 100 questions. If you say no, you have to enter all the information line by line from those tax forms from 2 years prior. That's horrible to do. And then we have to verify that information. We have to ask you for some of those tax forms when it gets to the school side of the FAFSA. So after you submit that, it goes to the Department of Ed, it comes to us, and then they're like, hey, make sure they didn't use the direct data exchange. You have to verify this information. And then we have to ask you guys for those tax forms, and it's a whole thing. So when you get to that direct data exchange, say yes. Students, same with you. If you know, hey, I didn't do anything, I didn't file any taxes 2 years ago, still say yes. It'll go and look and make sure that you didn't file anything. It'll pull in a bunch of zeros to that FAFSA. And then that information checks all those boxes. It's like 100 questions for both students and parents. Say yes to that direct data exchange. It's going to make your life so much easier when you're filling out the FAFSA. And then to start the FAFSA, you need an FSA ID. You can't sit down, create your FSA ID, and then jump right into the FAFSA. The FSA ID, once you create that, it's something that it takes 2 or 3 days to process and make sure that you're not lying about your identity and things like that. It'll confirm your social security numbers and it runs through like 8 or 9 different checks, confirms all the information, and then you'll get an email that says, hey, your FSA ID is ready. You can log in and do the FAFSA. So if you're planning on doing the FAFSA on Thursday night, make sure you create this FSA ID now, both the student and the parent that's going to be the contributor on the FAFSA. So both of you are going to need that. Parents, if you did the FAFSA when you were a student, you created that information, then you may have that student aid or that FSA ID as part of that. So all of that information that you put into the FAFSA, student information, parent information, income, assets, all that stuff that gets pulled into the FAFSA calculates the Student Aid Index or SAI. Parents, if you have older older kids or you've done the FAFSA for yourself, this used to be called the estimated family contribution, very similar to what it was. It's just the student aid index now. Um, that's the index number that the university, so all that stuff goes in there. Department of Ed runs this really nasty calculation for all those different things. It puts it in this calculation and it spits out a student aid index. That number is what schools use to determine how much financial aid you are eligible for. So we'll plug it into all the different federal programs, all the different state programs, university programs to see what you're eligible for. There's no magic number you're looking for, like, hey, if I keep it below this, then school is free. There's no magic number like that. All the different programs have different student index ranges for how we award aid. So when you see that number, just know that you don't really have to understand what goes into that. It gets sent to the schools. And then we do that. So it is not the amount of money that you pay for school. It's not the amount of aid you're receiving. It'll get presented to you as a dollar amount, which can be a little misleading, but it's not the amount of money you pay or amount of aid you're receiving, those kind of things. It's just the thing that we use to calculate your financial need and all those things that you put in there, those tax information, assets, benefits, household size, all that stuff. And then FAFSA direct data exchange, reiterate how important that is just to make your life easier. You've already filed those taxes, let the IRS fill that out information for you. All right, so because the FAFSA uses 2-year-old information, you may know, like, hey, that information that I filed on those 2024 taxes is different than what it is now. This special circumstance is for you. So it's going to pull in that 2024 information. You have to fill out the FAFSA using that 2024 information, even though you know it's wrong. Fill it out as soon as it gets to the schools, and you can fill out this special circumstance form. This is something that you will have to fill out with the school. It's not something that you do with the FAFSA. You submit it to us, and then we will go through and update those FAFSA information and then resend it, and they recalculate some of that student aid index number. So here are some examples. There's more than this, but these are the big ones that we have. Loss of employment. So student had a job in 2024. They made a bunch of money. They're not making that anymore. Or parents had a job or changed jobs and the income is less than what it was when you filed those 2024 taxes. This special circumstances for you. Separation or divorce. So there were 2 incomes in the household. You filed joint tax returns in 2024. Now the student just lives with one parent. We'll take some documentation from you, confirming those things, and then we'll go through and remove one of the 2 incomes out of the FAFSA, recalculate the student aid index, and get you some more aid. Medical expenses can be tricky because it's things after insurance. But if you have these things, you have these receipts, and this is something that we can take and work with you. And the same with death of a spouse or parent. Take that documentation, and then recalculate that student aid index. The thing that's tricky about these special circumstances is that if you're thinking you're shopping 2 or 3 different schools, you've got to submit this special circumstance form or information to all the different schools that you're thinking about going to, because it's not something you do on the central FAFSA, it's something you do with the schools, and then they'll take that information. The information should be the same at all the different schools of what we need to confirm these changes, because it's kind of a regulated thing through the Department of Ed, but just make sure that you are talking to your schools about, hey, what do I need to submit? When do I need to submit it? What forms do you have? That might be a little different from school to school, but the special circumstances is a great thing that allows parents to kind of update the information to what it is now if it's different from 2 years ago. And then our special circumstance form is this website link here. If you just Google search TTU special circumstance, you can find that form for each year. All right, there is a lot of words on this slide. Do not feel like you need to read all of this, but for students, the main gist of what this is that most students, 99% of students, are going to fill out the FAFSA with parent information. So the Department of Ed is really particular about who gets to fill out the FAFSA as an independent student, meaning without parent information, versus those who have to fill it out with parent information. So the following are not to be considered valid reasons for a dependency change or filling out the FAFSA as an independent student. And I pulled this straight from the Department of Ed. I wish it was different. Trust me, we get a lot of students telling us about these things, but I wish it was different. So parents' refusal to pay for college, that is not enough reason for the student to fill it out without parent information. Parents' refusal to provide information on the FAFSA, parents' inability to claim the student as a dependent for income tax purposes. So parents, if you said, hey, I didn't file them as a dependent in 2024, I don't have to include this. Sadly, that's not the case. And then students' ability to demonstrate self-sufficiency. So the student's like, hey, I'm going to college on my own. This is something that I'm not doing with my parents. I'm paying my own way. Sadly, that's nothing we can do. So if you can say yes to any of these questions, then this is something that we can work with the student to make sure they're filing the FAFSA as an independent student, meaning without their parent information. So if the students are 24 years of age or older, married themselves, pursuing a master's degree, so you've graduated undergrad, gone to grad school, active duty military or veteran, supporting dependent children, and supporting dependents other than children, in foster care, orphaned, dependent order of the court prior to age 13. And the state of Texas has some different rules here, so that's a tricky one. If you have any of those questions, call your financial aid offices. They can work with you. Emancipated minor or in legal guardianship. And sadly, these have to be as determined by the court in the state of your legal residence. So the state of Texas has to determine this, showing you are those two. And then in the last year, determined to be unaccompanied youth who is homeless or self-supporting and at risk of becoming homeless. And then we have some more information on our website. Every school is going to have similar. This is stuff that's straight from the Department of Ed. It has nothing to do with Texas Tech. I wish it was different, trust me, but this is just how Department of Ed talks about the FAFSA. All right, so taking my financial aid hat off, putting my Texas Tech hat on for this slide. And a lot of schools have a guarantee program, a promise program. So make sure you're exploring these at all the schools that you're thinking about going to. This is something specific to Texas Tech, but everyone's going to have a version of this. But Red Order Guarantee is our guarantee to cover your tuition and fees through a combination of grants and scholarships and things like that, as long as you meet these requirements. So accepted for admissions, and that's accepted, not just applied, accepted for admissions with the completed financial aid file. So submitted the FAFSA that we have received by March 15th. So that'll be March 15th of 2026. Texas resident, that's easy for you guys going to high school here in the state of Texas. Entering first year, a transfer student, family adjusted gross income of $80,000 or less. The FAFSA tells us this. You don't have to submit anything like that showing us that. And then enrolled full time when you get here. So no separate applications for these things. If you meet these criteria, the admissions application will show us residency and entering first year student. The FAFSA will show us family adjusted gross income of those things. So no separate application. Just make sure you're accepted to university by March 15th and have that FAFSA submitted to us by March 15th. Again, this is something that a lot of schools have. It's going to be different. Those requirements are going to be a little different, but it's going to be something that a lot of schools here in the state of Texas have. The dollar amounts and the gross incomes and how much aid and those kind of things will differ, but please look at those things and how they differ from school to school, so you're meeting those deadlines and doing the things you need to qualify for these before they send out financial aid offers.
Ms. James here. I just want to
Yeah.
chime in to reiterate that Texas Tech is one of the schools that offers this and is very generous at that 80,000 um, uh, mark for families. A lot of our families can qualify for that. If you're a Plano Senior High family, if you check our newsletter, we have a list of all of the state schools in Texas that offer this and what their household income requirement is.
Yes. Yeah. And that 80,000 went up from 65 last fall. So that's something that university knew that they needed to up. And so they did that last fall. So make sure you're checking those things because they're out there for everyone. Okay, so this is our version of your scholarships. Again, with all the schools that you're thinking about going to, make sure you are talking to your admissions counselors and your financial aid counselors and things like that at these schools. At Texas Tech, you apply to all of our first year scholarships on campus through your admissions application. So when you submit that admissions app, you submit those transcripts and test scores and you write those essays, and all those things that we have are things that are included in the admissions application. We use that information to qualify you for university scholarships through our office, through your college to different colleges on campus, and then your departmental scholarships. So the 150 or so departments on campus that we have, all the different degrees and majors and things like that fall into that departmental one. So please talk to your schools about what you need to apply to those scholarships. Some will have separate applications that you have to fill out. The admissions app is one thing, and the scholarship application is another. At Texas Tech, it's all built right in. Again, a lot of schools are going to have something similar to this. This is the Texas Tech version, but this is just our merit scholarship version. So the top right there is our high school unweighted GPA, and the left side is our SAT and ACT scores. Wherever the two meet is the dollar amount that you're going to get from us. So let's say you're a 3.8 student with a 1,200 SAT, you've got a $4,000 scholarship from Texas Tech. If you apply test optional, you fill out that admissions application as a test optional student, meaning without your test scores, And again, different schools in the state of Texas have different test optional requirements. Some have it, some don't. We do for this upcoming school year. If you apply test optional, we're just going to use that high school unweighted GPA from those transcripts. I know a lot of you. This used to be something that we used. We used class rank for. We found that really wasn't fair to students who graduated with 10 versus students that graduated with 1,000. And then we were going to do weighted GPA. We figured out some schools don't have that weighted GPA requirements, and so that's how we ended up with unweighted GPA. But these are all things that every school in the country has, every school in the state of Texas has. So just make sure you're exploring these opportunities, doing what you need to meet those deadlines. And then we will take new scores all the way up until April 1st. So obviously you're going to submit whatever you have at the time of your application. You keep taking those SATs and ACTs, keep submitting them to us. I know a lot of schools do this, but they will super score all those together. So if you've taken it 3 times, we're going to look at your best math score, pick the highest one, your best reading, your best writing, add those together, whatever the sections are, and add those together to give you a best super score. So please make sure you know all those upgrade deadlines. A lot of schools in the state of Texas operate pretty similarly. And then make sure you know those renewal requirements. So a lot of schools give out a bunch of scholarship money, and then you have to meet the requirements to keep that money year after year. So the GPA and the test score is what you do to earn that scholarship your freshman year. And then as long as you're meeting these renewal requirements down there at the bottom right, let's say that example that we just talked about, $4,000 scholarship. They need to keep a 3.25 GPA and take 30 Texas Tech hours a year. So as long as you're doing that, then that's 4 years of money that you have on your account. With all these dollar amounts, we cut them in half. So half for the fall semester, half for the spring semester.
I have a question. So if your
Yeah.
district does not print the unweighted GPA on your transcript, does Texas Tech calculate it?
Yeah, our admissions people, we have a great admissions team, and I'm glad that they do this so we don't have to. But they will look at every single grade that you made on those transcripts, and they will calculate that unweighted GPA for you. A lot of schools will have it on there on the transcript. I might not see something that you see on an unofficial, but it's something that we see on an official. That'll kind of depend. If there is a listed unweighted GPA, we take it for what it is. If there's not, then our admissions team goes in and calculates that. That's all part of the admissions process when you submit that admissions application. But yeah, great question. That's something that we get asked often, that unweighted GPA. And then this is for our transfer students. A lot of you are going to go straight from high school to your 4-year school, but there are opportunities for students who come. You graduate high school, you go to a 2-year school, you take your basics at a 2-year school, and then you go to a 4-year school. These are our transfer scholarships at Texas Tech. If you're coming straight from high school to Tech, you fall into that last slide scholarship, that first year, first time scholarship. I know a lot of you are going to qualify for dual credit hours and AP hours and things like that. You may graduate with an associate's degree or things like that. But if you're coming straight from high school, you're going to fall into that previous slide rather than this one. This is for students that graduate high school, go to another school, and then come to Tech again. A lot of schools are going to have transfer scholarships. If you are going to go take a year or two of basics before you go to a 4-year school, make sure that you're checking out those transfer scholarships so you know what to work for during those 2 years at a community college before you go to a bigger school. But this one's pretty simple, transferable hours. So how many hours transfer to Texas Tech when you transfer in, and then the GPA within those hours. So this one's pretty easy. But again, make sure you know these requirements and know the things that you need to do if you do go to another school before you transfer, so you know what to work towards when you get to those schools.
And I just want to clarify because we have
Yeah,
a lot of kids who do earn dual credit, and we even
yeah.
will have some students who graduate with an associate's degree. They graduate from high school and then go to Texas Tech that next fall. They are considered a freshman, even if they are coming with those dual and AP credits.
Correct. The better word
Okay,
may be first year, first time college students
okay,
rather than
okay.
freshmen, because a lot of them are going to
Got
have
it.
60 hours or 30 hours. And
Yes.
so but yeah, the previous slide is first year, first time students at
Hmm.
Texas Tech. And then transfer students would be you go to another school for a year or two, and then you come to
Got it.
school like
We
ours.
get that
Yes,
question a
thank you.
ton. Thank you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I wish you could fall into both groups. That would be great. But I think that would be really expensive for the school. So one or the other, sadly. All right, external scholarships. This is going to be something that's universal across all the different schools. This is going to be provided by donors outside of whatever the university is that you're applying to. These are all going to require separate applications. We recommend you complete 3 or 4 applications a week, so you can get in there and apply to those things. So the thing that I always say about these external scholarships, if you're thinking about this, Takes you 20 minutes, 30 minutes to fill out these external applications. It's an essay and a recommendation letter, whatever it may be. Takes you 30 minutes to fill out that application. And then if you get it, it's $1,000. That's pretty good pay per 30 minutes, per half hour. If we were all making $1,000 every half hour, I don't know if we'd be sitting here working, doing this right now, right? So make sure that you're thinking about those scholarships that way. The thing that we hear a lot is students are like, hey, I applied for all these $15,000 scholarships, these huge money scholarships. Thing about that is that there's a lot of kids applying to all of those. And a lot of kids discount things like $500 scholarships, like, I'm not wasting my time with that. I want to fill out those $15,000 scholarships. Don't think that those 5,000 or 1,000 or 500 or $1,000 scholarships don't add up quickly. Those are things that make your life really easy, make that bill really easy to pay because at all those external scholarships add right on top of whatever you get through the FAFSA, whatever you get through the state of Texas, whatever university scholarships you qualify for. These external scholarships pile right on top of that. So the more of these you need, the less loan money, the less debt after you get out of school, all those things. Your life is so much easier with these external scholarships. So complete 3 or 4 applications a week. Parents yell down the hall at those kids, make them do those applications. As soon as you have any free time, knock one out. And then keep track of what you applied for. You will need to reapply to a lot of these external scholarships each year. So a lot of students bring in a bunch of freshman money because parents are yelling down the hall to get them to fill out those applications. And then you roll around to sophomore year, you didn't reapply to all those scholarships the year before because you're living on campus wherever you are, and you don't fill out all those applications. And then life is a little more difficult your sophomore year. So make sure you're keeping track of what you applied for. Just start a spreadsheet with due dates and links and renewal requirements, things that you need to do each year to qualify for those things, just to make your life easier when it comes to reapplying for those scholarships this time next year when you're here. So things that you need to look for, teams and clubs and groups that you're a part of, ask them for scholarships. Students, if you're working a part-time job, ask your employers. I know places like Starbucks and Chick-fil-A and H-E-B and United Market Streets and those kind of places have scholarships for students. I talked to a student from San Antonio not too long ago that was transferring his employment from the H-E-B he worked at in high school up to Texas Tech, or to the H-E-B here in Lubbock, and it was coming with some scholarship money. So ask those employers about scholarship money. And parents, ask your employers. A lot of them have scholarships. It's tax write-off things that your employers can do, and so a lot of them have scholarships. You just got to ask for them, and again, keep track of that so you can redo those applications each year. Some websites: Going Merry, FastWeb, College Board kind of have big universal databases of scholarships. If you're admitted to Texas Tech, you have access to this thing called Scholarship Universe. Once you get accepted, you have login information as an accepted Tech student. That Scholarship Universe is a database of 17,000 scholarship applications, external scholarship applications that Scholarship Universe vets. They make sure that it's not anything phony or anything going on, but you go in there, you answer a bunch of questions about yourself, and it starts to filter out things that you wouldn't qualify for. So one of the first questions it asks you is, do you have any military background in your family? You say no, it filters out all the questions, all those scholarship applications that have a veteran component of that. And so it will filters that $17,000 application thing down into a smaller group, makes it a little more manageable for you as a student applying to those things. But that's something that you'll have access to as accepted students. But Going Merry, FastWeb, College Board all have similar things. Work study. So these are jobs on campus. Again, every school in the country, every school in Texas is going to have work study programs. Ours is our Red Raider Student Employment Center. You get in there, you can kind of shop all the different jobs on campus. These are live for students in August, kind of as you arrive to campus, all these jobs get posted. But most of these are going to be on campus. We can't work any more than 20 hours a week. That's a state, federal rule there. So 20 hours a week, plenty of time for students to be students, do the things they need to, go to the football games on the weekends and basketball games and whatever it may be, get your studying in. A lot of these jobs are going to be Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, because they're going to be working alongside full-time staff. We've got 10 or 15 students that work in our office, answer phones, admissions, people students give tours. Those are all work study positions, 20 hours a week. So you got plenty of time to be a student, do the things you need to. I know some people are like, no, not freshman year, you don't need a job. These 20 hours a week job are easy, makes a lot of money, And then there's all kinds of different things on campus. You can work at Chick-fil-A or Starbucks on campus. You can lifeguard at the pool. You can do some like hardcore lab research, right? So all these different jobs, that website link is a great thing. Again, you got to be accepted, and then these jobs kind of open up in August, but majority of them going to be on campus, 20 hours a week. Easy to do during your time. But again, explore those jobs on campus, guys. You qualify for work study eligibility through the FAFSA. So submit that application. I know you may not want to, but that work study eligibility will be part of that. VA benefits again. So state of Texas, kids going to school in the state of Texas, Hazelwood is something that you may qualify for if your parents were. If they deployed from Texas or returned to Texas after a deployment, the Hazelwood benefits are something that you qualify for through the state of Texas. That pays tuition. Federal benefits, Chapter 31, 33, 35. There's a bunch of those, post 9/11, those kind of things. There are different levels to what they pay for. Some will pay for tuition. Some will pay for part of tuition. Some will pay for housing or meals or monthly stipends and things like that. So please call the people at the schools that you're thinking about who, for what those benefits are, what they pay for, what you need to do. Because if you don't tell the schools about those, then they will include them in your financial aid packages. And like if we know that students getting Hazelwood, then Hazelwood pays tuition, and so we know that the rest of your money is going to go to pay for your dorm and your meal plan on campus or parking or whatever it may be. These are the phone numbers and emails for the Texas Tech version of that, the Military and Veterans Program or MVP on campus. Again, call those people at those schools that you're thinking about because they all need to take all of that VA paperwork and those DD 214s and those kind of forms that you have if these are benefits that you may qualify for. So I'm grateful that we have this MVP office on campus because they make this stuff look easy, and I know it's not. So yeah. And then again, these is Texas Tech financial aid information. Every school that you're applying for has, or you're applying to has contact information in your financial aid offices. At Texas Tech, you have an advisor based on your last name that you can answer any questions. That finaid.advisor emails an automated inbox. As soon as your email hits that inbox, it gets forwarded out to whoever your advisor is. So I know that you may want to email someone's email their first dot last name at the school. A lot of them will have these automated inboxes like that. It hits it gets sent out to the right people. If someone's on vacation or out sick or whatever, and you send it to an inbox and they're gone, we may not be able to answer those questions. But with that FinA.advisor, it goes in there and we can answer those questions if we have staff out, we can fill in for them, those kind of things. And phone numbers and emails and websites. Again, please call your financial aid offices wherever you may be thinking about going. Financial aid offices or offers are going out soon for a lot of schools. We started sending ours out last week. Students that are admitted to university, and we have your FAFSA, and that FAFSA is complete. Then we have sent out a lot of that information. So a lot of schools those are coming out soon. So make sure you're communicating with them where those offers are sent, what you need to do to accept them, those kind of things. Please call your financial aid offices. And even if it's just like, hey, have I done everything I need to? Here's my name and my student ID number. What do I need to do to confirm all of these things? And so please, it'll make a financial aid officer happy. This kind of year is a slow time. As soon as you get into the spring, you get into January, then we're worrying about our on-campus students getting their bills paid and in the spring, and then when we get into the summer, the volume really increases. So this is a great time of year to call your financial aid offices and make sure you're getting those questions answered before it gets down to nitty gritty and you're having to make decisions and put down housing deposits and things like that. So call them, talk to them about whatever everything that you may need because it'll start to get busy here soon, and we don't want you to miss out on any information because we've got a line of 100 students in front of you. So. But yeah, I think that's all. Is that right, Ms. James?
Yes, I think
Okay.
it is.
Is that my last slide? Okay.
Yes, we had a couple questions in the chat. I think
Yes.
I was able to answer them.
Yeah, let's see. Oh,
I
yes. Yeah.
definitely, one of them was just, are there other forms to fill out besides the FAFSA for
Yes. Okay.
financial aid?
So, yeah. So there is a thing called a CSS profile. That is something that other schools have. It's very similar to the FAFSA. It's not as automated as the FAFSA. So I hear it's a real slog to get through, but it's something that the private schools use. I know that Baylor and TCU are the two of the ones in the state of Texas that require it. So if you are thinking about a school like that, again, call them, call the schools that you're thinking about going to, and be like, "Hey, is the FAFSA all I need to do?" And they'll say yes, and that's something that is pretty easy. But yeah, that CSS profile is another thing that's kind of similar to the FAFSA, but the FAFSA is usually the first step, and then those other things will come through later. Um, but yes, that's the kind of the main one. And again, call your schools and talk about your financial aid, or sorry, scholarship applications and those kind of things. Again, at Tech, it's kind of built in, but other schools have separate applications. Different colleges and departments have separate applications, and so make sure you are talking to them about what you need to fill out. The FAFSA is kind of a universal thing, but the universities may have something more specific to their thing. Let's see these other
And I think
chats.
that's it for
Okay,
questions for the group. Um,
perfect.
Um, I want to thank you for taking the time to chat with us tonight. And I do want to reiterate something that he said about looking for those scholarships. Here
Yes.
in Plano, all of your students have access to a program called School Links, and we add scholarships to School Links. They're not just randomly there, they're added by your counselors so that we also know that these are good scholarships for you to apply for. But once you are admitted to schools like Texas Tech, you will get access to their scholarship database. So there's a lot out there. And I love your analogy about, if it takes you 30 minutes to an hour to fill out an application and then that can result in 500, $1,000 scholarship, that was worth your time.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. All right. Well, this has been recorded, and I'll be sharing this with the counselors in our district so that you can go back and review it if needed. You're out ahead of the game because, FAFSA just opened up a couple months ago, and we're really at the start of the process. So you're already
Yeah,
ahead of things by thinking about this now versus later.
that's and
All
Christmas
right.
break is a
Uh-huh.
great time to do
Yes.
these things.
Yes.
Tell that to our continuing students because you're home and you got nothing to do. Fill out those applications, fill out that FAFSA, fill out those scholarship applications. I know writing another essay is the last thing you want to do, students, but fill those out, write those things, get them submitted so people can award you the money, right?
Yes, sir. Well, thank you again. It was great partnering with you. And
Yeah.
if our folks have any questions, they will reach out.
Awesome.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you guys. Have a good one.
Uh-huh.